Here's everything I played in August. Before we start, I just posted my update video a few days ago, so you can give it a watch if you missed it, but to recap, I have a Discord and Patreon now. I'm really excited about it. I love talking more with the people who click with my content, and stealing money from them also, I guess. Go check out the Patreon. Here's the recommendation scale. As always, remember 5 is not a perfect game, but one that I'd universally recommend. Let's start with the funny punching game with LeBron James. Multiversus has already kind of gone through the motions of these games that get really big really quickly. It had that buzz and died down slightly, joining Fall Guys and Among Us. But I do think it has the potential to keep relatively high interest going forward because it's got a low level of entry with super basic movesets while still having a high skill ceiling, and also features such a ridiculous group of characters that it's just fun to see them all on screen. I know some people have complained about its lack of cohesion, but honestly that's what I like about it. I mean, Space Jam didn't have cohesion, that was the whole point. It's funny seeing Shaggy fight Arya Stark, like what a weird sentence. There are some issues with the hitboxes, and I wish the game buckled into its ridiculousness a bit more, maybe had more interesting maps and mechanics thrown in there to promote insanity, but it's still good fun, and best of all, it has a lot of characters it can pull from. You best believe when Ben 10 shows up, I'm not playing as anyone else. Ben 10 and Multiversus will be my Sephiroth in Smash, I'm sorry. I hope the game can keep adding content consistently. The devs seem cool. I like that it's a more accessible version of Smash Bros with characters that haven't gotten much video game representation, and I like that all the characters have such unique movesets and playstyles. No two characters feel the same, and when you throw in Tom and Jerry fighting each other as their attacks, the Acme stuff with bugs, the Iron Giant's rage mode, it's great. Not everyone loves it, but honestly I think most people should try it, which is why it gets a 4 out of 5. Archvale is a really good game that I have to give a warning to. Don't play this on hard. I automatically pick hard difficulty for games nowadays. I'm still not great at them, but I like the challenge, and this feels a bit ridiculous for being one step above normal, and the especially rough part is that you can't change the difficulty mid-game. The most frustrating aspect of the difficulty is that the damage you take on hard is inexcusably high. You get hit with a single normal projectile, and it'll take 6 hearts off your health bar, and you need to use every potion in your inventory while avoiding attacks to go back to full. There were times early on when it took 3 hits total to burn through all of my health, even with healing, which is pretty ridiculous for a game that has this much flying around and multiple rooms that you need to engage with to reach a checkpoint. It's just not great for first-time players, and it sucks that you're locked into it. I started having real problems like 5-6 hours in, and I didn't want to restart the whole game over, so I was a bit discouraged from playing it, which is unfortunate because it's a really fun game otherwise. It's very energetic, the weapons and upgrade systems are solid, the bosses are good, it's a fun action-adventure bullet hell soup, and despite largely talking about its flaws, I'm actually going to give it a 4 as well because it's very well made, but I have to try and save you guys from my own mistakes. Now I know this next one's not actually a game, but it's on Steam, so it makes it on here by technicality. Wallpaper Engine. I had so much fun just messing around with all the wallpapers on here. Some of them are animated very subtly, some a lot more obvious, some sync with your music, some have clocks on them, and best of all, it connects to your phone, as long as you have an Android. My sister learned that the hard way. I've never seen her more upset to have an iPhone, which is crazy because it's an iPhone. Ooh, zing! Got him! You can also schedule your wallpaper to change after a certain amount of time, so every hour it changes to something new for me, and I try to match them with the times of day. I love this stuff. If you enjoy custom wallpapers, I mean, the app is $5, but it's genuinely incredible. 5 out of 5. It even has a remove anime girls filter. That's hilarious. Cult of the Lamb is one that I have a full video on, so real quick, this is a game where you build up a cult from scratch while going on dungeon crawling missions in between, and my favorite thing about it is that despite juggling quite a bit at once, it is able to make it all work. It's darkly funny and has a lot of base building elements, which I'm not usually a fan of, but it's so streamlined and commits so hard to the cult idea that it's hard not to enjoy it. The combat is very simple but also very well balanced. Early on, new regions are a struggle, but eventually you feel extremely powerful, and the game has a pretty unbelievable amount of ways to progress and engage with side activities and personalize your cult. It's great. For a better rundown of the good and bad, I'd recommend watching that full video, but one thing that I should add that I wasn't aware of at the time is that bugs are actually pretty common on console. I mentioned the bugs that I ran into on Switch, but more people have been coming out and saying the console versions are just having a lot of issues in general, so I would recommend, if you are interested, to maybe wait for a few more weeks for patches to come out, because the underlying fun of this game is absolutely worth experiencing. Without bugs, this would be a strong 4, but I'm placing it at a 3 for now. Either way, really strong start to this list of games. Alright, let's talk about some other stuff real quick. Thor: Love and Thunder and Miss Marvel were super average. Love and Thunder breaks my heart. I actually watched this last month, but I didn't really have enough other stuff for the interlude section, so I'm talking about it now. I love Ragnarok. I think it's one of the better MCU movies. I love Taika Waititi despite everyone literally flipping on this man in an instant. I love Thor as a character. I love Gore. I love Christian Bale. I love the main comic series this is based on. And when Taika Waititi said last year that Love and Thunder was going to be the best MCU movie to date, I fully believed him. This felt like a recipe for success, and then we just got a movie that felt like it was running away from itself. Scenes would end so quickly when they were going on, it felt like they were speed running through their lines, everything was go, go, go. Marvel movies are usually pretty fast paced and it usually works in their favor, but my god, I couldn't get emotionally attached to anything despite the solid setup for so much of it. Gore gets a solid 4 seconds of screen time, which is criminal not just for the character, but for Christian Bale. There's a part in the movie where they have a big fight and it ends abruptly and they go back home and they're quickly like, Jane's hurt, Valkyrie's hurt, and just ditches the whole mission. Thor goes and flies away. 5 minutes later, the final battle starts. Like, what? The movie had such a rushed feel and it's a genuine shame. I still found it somewhat enjoyable in the moment and there were some amazing scenes, but the movie acted like it wasn't even interested in itself, and that's a bummer. Miss Marvel I didn't have the highest hopes for, but I was actually enjoying a lot of the first couple episodes with the cool ass editing, and while it sometimes felt a bit awkward, the representation of the culture I grew up in, but it just fell off the rails later. All of a sudden I'm watching people that I don't care about, the story felt like it lost all of its direction, it just seemed like a different show altogether. Neither one of these were horrible, but they were just disinteresting. There's a lot of Phase 4 hate going around, and while I'd argue that there's still been some good stuff, I can't pretend like Marvel hasn't also been putting out a larger share of mediocre stuff than before. Just slow down, you know? I mean, they're not, they're apparently going way faster, but I wish they wouldn't. The White Lotus was an interesting show that I definitely didn't just watch because it had Alexandra Daddario and Sydney Sweeney in it, and I also didn't blow a circuit in my brain when the two of them had a conversation for the first time. I was definitely paying attention to what they were saying, that's for sure. But honestly, regardless of why I watched it, the show is very offbeat and hard to grab onto, which is kind of why it works. It doesn't feature likable or unlikable characters, it just features characters, and at points I didn't even know what was driving me to watch the show, but I was watching it anyways. It was a weird experience, but one that was definitely indicative of a good show, albeit one that I probably won't revisit. That's fine though, it was something different and I did enjoy it. I would recommend it to people, just know that it might not capture you for the same reasons that another show might. And capping off this first interlude, 2000 by Joey Badass. This is a very throwback album that actually sounds like it could have come out around 2000. It's a sequel to 1999, which some people still consider to be Joey's best work, and while his hunger on that record is still unmatched as it tends to be with artists that make it in the industry, 2000 shows off a Joey who seems to have learned to mix the old school with a more modern melodic flair. The Revenge single was a song that I thought indicated a shift even further into modern mainstream hip-hop, which I didn't think suited him all that well, but I like the balance that he strikes here. And his microphone presence and poignant lyrics, while more self-focused than something like All American Badass, are still as sharp as ever. Hey, so you know how I said we were off to a hot start with this video? Battlefield 1 campaign. This game looks so good that I think it forgot it also had to be entertaining. I know a lot of people like this campaign, but I just really don't get it. The gimmick of following different stories in the war is interesting, but it also means that you barely spend any time with the characters, and the focus on vehicles is so frustrating. Enemy planes and tanks feel like they're just thrown in there at random, there's no rhyme or reason to it. The plane combat is pretty unfun and ineffective, especially being not too far removed from playing chorus. And holy shit, dude, the tank stuff sucks. Battlefield 1's tank storyline takes up almost half of its total runtime, and it felt like 70 to 80% of it was actively being in a tank, so it's a significant stretch, and dude, it's just facing off against other tanks moving at 3 centimeters per year and shooting them directly in the face while they shoot you. And then when you blow them up, you go and repair yourself for a bit, which requires you to stand completely still. It devolves into this horribly slow hide and seek where you're actually taking cover as a tank, and so much of this section is just like empty space. Oh no, I died. Alright, reload checkpoint. I have no idea why people like this campaign, and if you do, then you're a stupid head. 2 out of 5. Rollerdrome. Now this is a video game. Roll7 has put out 2 games this year that have quietly crushed it, this and Ollie Ollie World. Both have appealed to me despite not being a fan of skateboarding or rollerblading games, and both have made me want to platinum them until I realized that I'm tragically horrible at video games. There's not an overabundance of tools or controls here, the Trictionary is a lot more manageable than most games of this nature, and there's clear best ways to take enemies out, but this game is more about how you flow all of that together. You can launch upwards, pull up some sick rotating flips, shoot a guy in the head, land, blow up another goon with a grenade launcher, hop on a rail, jump on a wall and shotgun someone, or you know, you can pull off the same trick 8 times in a row because you can't process what the hell is going on fast enough. What do you mean safety grab front flip is gray now? But either way, it's a fun ass loop. It's short and tough, the system of performing tricks and dodges to regain health is straight up brilliant, and this is up there with Cult of the Lamb as one of the best ideas of 2022. I picked up Super Meat Boy Forever partly for a video that I'm working on that talks about sequels to difficult games, and partly because I needed a play stuff on my Switch for my road trip, and I was honestly pleasantly surprised. The reviews for this game were kind of rough, especially the user reviews, but that's not always indicative of the actual quality. The biggest knock on this game is that it follows up an ultra-precise, difficult platformer with an endless runner, which is usually associated with mobile games. Tie that into the fact that the original plan for this game was just to be a mobile Super Meat Boy, and people cried foul and greedy on the dev team. The thing is, I get it. I mean, I don't have much nostalgia for Super Meat Boy specifically, I just played it last year after I knew the sequel was an endless runner, but I could imagine if Celeste was followed up by like Celeste Pack Joyride, it'd be pretty jarring. But Super Meat Boy Forever is a pretty solid endless runner with a lot of new ideas thrown in every level. Very creative choices are made with the blocks and obstacles that make those levels feel very different, and while it may not give you the freedom of the original, it's replaced by this need to think and adapt quickly, because for me this was still pretty tough. It landed me with the same bruised thumb feeling as the original while also expanding on the sometimes gruesome animated cutscenes, so while it might be a hot take, I think Super Meat Boy Forever is actually pretty good. It's nothing too special, and it is a step down from the original, so it gets a 3, but I also don't think you should count it out entirely, especially if you want a tough game to play on the go. I finally read through most of Hickman's Fantastic Four run. I am so behind on comics that I want to get to, but this one was big, especially since I knew it began the arc that Marvel is taking inspiration from in this next saga. And while it was a great read, I will say I don't suggest Jonathan Hickman in general for beginners. He has a very intricate way of laying out stories that sometimes make you question whether there's information that you maybe didn't fully grasp, which is a concern when you're a newish reader. And while other books of his, like East of West, I was pretty secure thinking, oh, it's self-contained, I'll understand eventually, and I did. Sometimes this book will discuss like the Inhumans, and I'll just be like, hold on, I have no idea what's happening with the Inhumans in the comics around this time, and that's got me totally turned around here. Still, I love that Hickman takes big swings and decides to shake up the status quo more than other writers without completely demolishing the book in the process, and I'm excited to finish it next month and eventually move my way closer and closer to Secret Wars. The Forever Story by Jid is potentially the best rap album of the year, in a year that we got releases from Joey Badass, Denzel Curry, and Kendrick Lamar. Jid's pure technical ability is honestly unmatched by anyone I've heard, maybe ever. He can ride a beat perfectly, he can weave into the pockets in a way that's so unorthodox, but it works so well it just doesn't make sense to my brain, and he manages to up his personal storytelling and melodies to the next level on this project. The two ends especially I've had on repeat since it came out. The middle slows down a bit and it still features good songs, but I just prefer the other ones, and I like the versatility that he showed here. He's not a one-trick pony. It's only a matter of time before Jid goes fully mainstream, and when he does, he'll already have one of the strongest discographies of the new guard. Whoa, hey, how'd that picture get in there? Sorry, let me just clear that off for you. The Sandman on Netflix made me want to read The Sandman. I know I should have read it already. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll get there eventually. Netflix's budget for these shows is kind of going hard as hell. These effects look great, and especially the 5th and 6th episodes of this show are phenomenal. It kind of gives me similar vibes to Doctor Who with a little bit less camp, although there is still some, which honestly that's fine. And I've heard that the 2 arcs that it tackled were some of the weaker ones in The Sandman, so fingers crossed we get more seasons. The extra episode was weird and not my favorite, but I like that they can do these special episodes. I just really want to see where this series can go. And let's cap off all the interludes with a bit of an finale. Viva Las Vengeance from Panic was a bit no. I didn't want to jump off a bridge when I heard it, which apparently everyone on Twitter wanted to do, but I just thought the songs sounded very similar. They all featured the same strained falsetto from a man who has the voice of a damn angel, but it fit a little awkwardly here. And even as somebody who's pretty unfamiliar with classic rock, I still find it to be overly derivative. I like Pray for the Wicked better, though to be fair, I'm one of the 5 people who actually liked Pray for the Wicked. I do appreciate the stylistic changes that Brendan's making, but a return to punk or even closer to alt pop would be what I want from the band's next record. Let's wrap this up with 2 pretty short games. First of all, Portal. I've already played Portal. You've probably already played Portal. If you haven't, it shouldn't be a question of if, it should be a question of when, and the answer should be now. This series is as close to perfect as it gets, as close to being for absolutely everyone as it gets. It has a perfect sense of humor, the perfect progression of puzzles, and some iconic moments. I shouldn't need to explain to you why you need to play it. 10 out of 5. It's only like 3 hours long too, so seriously, if you haven't played it, just do it, you goon. And Midnight Fight Express is a fun romp developed by one person that you should definitely play, especially if you're on Game Pass, but there's a couple of things holding it back. It's got a lot of fun outfits that you can purchase from just playing and being good at the game, and the level layouts are very different and well made, but the major issue I have is the combat can feel a bit too spammy. It doesn't flow all that well. I think the reason is that it kind of takes after the Arkham combat a bit, but it doesn't regulate group attacks so everyone can kind of hit you at once, plus you don't have crazy acrobatic long-range melee attacks like you get with Batman and Spider-Man, and too many moves from the enemies are uncounterable. Your best strategy to not only succeed but also enjoy the combat a bit more, at least until you you pick up more upgrades is to spread out bad guys as much as you can. It's fairly effective and it shows off a core combat system that does feel good, but you constantly have to reset and run to get into these more ideal situations, without which fights can just get overwhelming almost instantly. It doesn't ruin the game, and it also has some incredibly polished presentation and a good amount of new enemy types. There's a lot of upside, but it does stop it from being the best version of itself that it could be. It's still pretty damn impressive though, and the developer deserves a lot of support for this very solid game regardless, and I hope it winds up being a success for him. 3 out of 5. Reminder to check out the Discord and the Patreon if you're interested. Be prepared for me to plug it for at least the next few videos. I hate doing it, but I kind of have to right now. If you enjoyed the video, leave it a like. If you're new here, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.